So, as most of you know, we recently got started with our group that is going through the equity consulting process of building their businesses in that course. But I wanted to share with you a really amazing story, and this is about the wealthiest black man in America, Mr. Robert F. Smith. And he's done really well in private equity. I am a big fan, obviously, of private equity because it's changed my life. It's changed how I view money, how I view deals, and quite honestly, how I see the world. And so I want to share this story with you because the thing that's really exploded Robert Smith wealth is adding consulting for equity. And unfortunately, for me, it took me a long time to realize. And even looking at his business, I think you go through this process. And my goal for you and for my clients that I work with is that you don't have to figure things out by trial and error. It's like I take the licks and it's like, hey, here is how you should be building your acquisition business, whether it's an acquisition holding company, you're getting into the private equity fund space, or doing deals in general. I think an important component of that is consulting for equity, and that's why I think that this is important. But also, just because Robert Smith is a fascinating character, and being in the private equity space and building a fund from scratch to the level that he's built his fund to is just an incredible feat in and of itself. But also to become the wealthiest black man in America, and in that same process is also just even more amazing. And I love it for a few reasons. So because number one, it can be really easy to focus on the basketball players and how much money they're making, or the rappers, the famous people, and how much money that they're making. And it does a disservice, I think, to young people not to tell them these stories. Like, no, get into this world. This is where the true wealth, and you don't need any special talent or whatever. You just need to learn this game. And if you learn this game, you can, and even if you're not the wealthiest, you're going to do really, really well in the process. And so it's one of the reasons that I'm really passionate about, spreading the word of private equity and helping people get into this game. It's because it's ignored for the most part, and it is the biggest and best game. Literally, the most wealthy black person is in this game, and nobody is talking about it. So, first, let's dive into his extraordinary journey, because I think it is just a testament to some of the other things I talk about when it comes to acquisitions, when it comes to private equity. And so I think as you look at that path, you can basically kind of path things out for yourself, right? So back when Robert started in private equity, he was coming from Goldman Sachs. And I tell you guys all the time, people think that people in the private equity world come from business. It's not. It's an investment banking mind that comes and wins the best in this space. And that's why I teach those principles. Now, when he came in, the whole game was basically borrow a ton of money, buy a business, let it pay off all of this debt, and you win. The downside was he was going into technology, and at that point, in the early 2000s, late 90s, like people weren't lending on software businesses, and it's one of the things that I love about this is that he took a totally different approach. He really had to, in order to get really great returns, he had to build a system, pretty much just this well-oiled machine to buy these businesses, cross promote them, a lot of the strategies that I talk about us using, even in the acquisition hold code process. But with each deal, he just followed this very specific set of rules and filters for the deals that he was doing. And then he followed a very specific system for what he did to grow those, and he did a lot more deals than the average person was doing, where they were filling up just the coffers with a bunch of debt. He's done like 300 deals to this point, and even just right now has about 50 deals that he hasn't exited yet. So part of it is always in this. It's financial wizardry, which is important to make these deals work, which is why the financial engineering aspect is number one, more valuable than any entrepreneurial skill. And more important because you can do it across the board. So when you look at the entrepreneurs that have leveraged this to tremendous wealth, it's like you have to be an extraordinary individual like Elon Musk. With this stuff, it's like if you learn that financial engineering, the different strategies, then any person can leverage those things. So he did take the traditional private equity route, learning mergers and acquisitions. He specifically at Goldman worked in mergers and acquisitions. One of the reasons that I'm always telling people you should start with a good merger because that gets you access to what this process is. You're looking at a lot of deals, you're understanding deal flow, you're negotiating, you're helping with deal structure, you're putting together cap tables, you're getting access to outside financial institutions. All of those things are what's involved when you want to go out and do deals on your own. And so, he attended Columbia, top 20 university, went to Goldman, was just really smart to go through the M&A route, got to work on deals as we call him merger specialist, but as a person, a professional in M&A, and then he leveraged that and took that into his own private equity fund, and that is the typical route. The top people in the space start in M&A and then move into private equity. They're not owning businesses, they're not starting businesses, and I think that skill set when it comes to private equity is really overrated. It can actually be a downside. The thing that I'm always fighting is people coming into a fund and thinking like a business owner. So it just doesn't work. All right, so let's talk numbers. We talked about him being the wealthiest black man in America, but like, what's behind Robert Smith's empire? One of the things that I love is that he's got a very just massive team, something I am never interested in. It's one of the reasons I know I have no aspiration to ever get that big, just because I don't want to deal with that headache. He has 300 people, and that's been on a tear of growing because because of what I talked about at the beginning of this video. So it takes a lot of brain power working behind the scenes, but he's really been growing because of the equity consulting component that he does. So he'll go out and do consulting, but then they have this really cool equity consulting component that has been one of the factors that's just really grown that. So just on that side alone is 100 people. So the fund itself has 300 people. I'm sorry, the overall company has 300 people with 96 billion under management, but he's dedicated 1/3 of those people to this game of the equity consulting component. So that just shows the level of commitment. So if you've got 96 billion, like, hey, I'm gonna take 100 of you people and put you into this consulting side of things. So, by the way, if you're interested in learning how to do equity consulting yourself, I'm gonna put the email. I did a free training. I'll give you access to it. So you can get that at Apprentice. Just send an email. It's not posted. So it's apprentice at equity.consulting. So apprentice at equity.consulting is not a .com. I'll put the link in there just so you're not confused. But I really feel like, for a lot of you that are trying to figure out how do I do a deal with no money down, or how do I get into this space if I don't have a bunch of time, I think that strategy is the answer to both of those. As you know, I'm not a fan of the traditional way of trying to do no money down deals, because you end up with terrible businesses that waste a bunch of time, actually do create a bunch of financial risk and headaches and all of that. So I want to get you into really great businesses, and the equity consulting strategy is a way to do that. One of the other things I love is, I was looking at some videos, or looking at a video of Robert Smith before I did this, and when the interviewer asked him, like, when did you know you had this amazing talent for doing this? Like, obviously, you're amazing at running a private equity fund. Like, when did you realize that? And he was like, you must. Was it like they literally said, like, was it year one? Year two? He's like, no, it's like after the first fund and the first and all the deals were done, I realized, okay, like now I know how to do this. Now I'm good at this. It's one of the reasons that with PEFI, we help people build their very first fund, because you are in this really amazing position to have the experience. You don't know how to do it until you've done it and completed it. So the other thing that is really cool is the amount of leverage when it comes to private equity. There's 60,000 people worldwide working for Vista. So I mentioned the 300, but then really 200 is on the fund. But that is, managing basically, or owning and leveraging 60,000 employees, which is absolutely incredible. I would be remiss not to mention that he did marry this Playboy playmate about 7 years ago. But one of the things that I love, because I really don't like even with some of my investors I work with, is like, dude, money is meant to be enjoyed. And so, the people that are just like, penny pinchers to the nth degree aren't really inspirational. It's like, man, if you're gonna make this amount of money, like, enjoy it and live the life. It's like, why do you have the billions? Like, give it to somebody that's really going to use it. So I love that he lives this kind of jet set life. That is really cool. And then he just seems to be a cool guy. Like, even his philanthropy is like kind of basically just extra. His philanthropy is extra. So he's speaking at Morehouse College in Atlanta, and it's the commission speech. He basically says, "Hey, I'm going to pay everybody's student loans," which is pretty outrageous. I'm still curious, like, how much exactly? Because that college, I think it's maybe 30, 40,000 a year, something that is absolute nuts. And you got 4 years of that. A lot of those students are doing 100%, finance. They're not paying it out of pocket. So I'm really curious to know what that end amount was. But this is just a reminder that this whole strategy of private equity in general is really powerful. You add consulting, or doing equity consulting deals to that adds the power. And then, when you're somebody who's starting out and you're just going to buy a business, when you can take the strategies that you're learning, because that's essentially what they're doing. They realize, well, if we've got to figure out how to grow these businesses anyway, we might as well go over here and use that knowledge to get an additional source of income. So that's how you should be thinking about the deals that you're doing. If you're not in the Patreon, you should be. We're talking all the time about assets, cash flow, and equity, and how you can grow yours. We've got our training coming up this month. It's going to be the mini media mogul strategy. So we're going to be talking about how to do deals on, whether it's things like newsletters, social media, different forms of media, and then use that to get equity in deals, or use that to grow a business that you already own. So that will be a lot of fun. So if you're not in now, be sure to get in, because that training is coming up on the 29th. The other thing, though, is what I mentioned here, which is the equity consulting training that I did that is free. And you can get that by emailing apprentice at equity consulting, not .com, just apprentice at equity consulting. Thanks for checking out the video. Be sure to subscribe. Be sure to like. Was Robert Smith, is that somebody that's an inspiration to you? And also, check out the book, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? Even if you are a white guy, this book is absolutely amazing. It's a story of one of the first African Americans who got into private equity back in the 80s when it was called corporate rating. And it is just a delightful, delightful read. Check it out. Talk to y'all soon.